Am I the asshole for passively tormenting an entitled child? My wife and I are vacationing at the beach. We walked into a crab shack style restaurant today, right on the beach, to get some of that sweet, sweet seafood. While we were waiting to be served, after being seated, a family was seated next to us. It was a grandma, grandpa, and grandson. Grandson was around 7 to 8 years old and was immediately crying and yelling at ear-piercing volume at the grandparents about how he, quote unquote, told them that he didn't want to eat here and, quote unquote, didn't even want to come to the beach. The doting grandmother was trying to console him and was basically serving as a whipping post. The grandfather was silently eating and not engaging. At first, we ignored him as best we could, but he got progressively louder and louder and was frankly ruining our lunch. I was wearing prescription sunglasses indoors because I left my glasses at our chair by accident and I needed them to see. I was looking at the drink menu that was in this small plastic stand at our table. And as I was, the little kid loudly started accusing me of staring at him. Grandma politely asked me not to stare at him, and when I explained that I was reading the menu, she tried to explain to the kid in a, "See, it was just a misunderstanding" type of way. The kid was having none of it and proceeded to accuse me of looking at him again about 5 minutes later. Once he started accusing me of staring at him the second time, I started actually staring at him. And when he would have an outburst, I would just move my gaze slightly somewhere else and play dumb. I'm sure it was obvious what I was doing, but it was amusing, and it was tormenting this entitled turd. At one point, when Grandma went to the bathroom and Grandpa was still engaged, the kid just turned in his seat and puffed up aggressively and said, "I'm not going to tell you to stop staring again." When he did that, I slid my sunglasses down my nose, winked at him over my glasses, and slid them back up, at which point he had a massive meltdown and asked his grandpa to make me stop. In a solid and loud outburst, Grandpa slammed his fist down on the table and unloaded on the kid about how he had done nothing but bitch for the last 3 hours, stood up, grabbed the kid by the collar, and walked him up to stand and paid for their meal. Grandma came out of the bathroom shortly after and saw that they were leaving, so she left with them. My wife was angry that I had screwed around with a little kid despite his behavior. I defended myself, but she says that I wasn't the asshole, but I was an asshole. I maintain that I wasn't the asshole, though I did inadvertently ruin the lunch of the old folks he was with by spooling him up more than he already was. We're at an impasse. What's your verdict? Edit. One of the biggest lessons I've learned from this Am I the Asshole is to not gloss over details, because the premise of one of the points I've heard a lot here is based on some things I was definitely not clear on, and that is my bad, and I should have been more clear. Hindsight is 20/20, but you live and you learn. So, just to clarify a few points. While the kid was crying at the beginning when he came in, that was short-lived and was over well before I came into the picture. When I said things like quote-unquote meltdown, they didn't involve tears, but anger and yelling. He was pounding his fists on the table, doing that exaggerated hand-fold exhale, and yelling and screaming at his grandma. I wasn't sitting there reducing a child to a blubbering heap of tears and anguish. That would be horrifying and heartbreaking. Poking a very frustrated bear of a kid? Sure. Childishly making someone as uncomfortable as they were making everyone else? Absolutely. Torturing a helpless child into a lifetime of scars and fear? Hardly. That's partially my fault for using words like quote unquote torment. It was hyperbole and set the wrong tone. Also, when I said accusing me of staring at him the second time, I started actually staring at him. I should have been more clear. I didn't just sit there and stare at a scared child who was just hoping the scary man would go away. I was eating lunch with my wife. She was my main focus. What was happening was the kid was starting to alternate between fixating on me and trying to get his grandma to do something or give him something. There were a lot of times over the 2 hours that and I either wouldn't notice because I was talking to my wife or I ignored it. Only periodically would I meet his gaze for 10 seconds or so, and then he would have another outburst about how I was looking at him. I'm not trying to change votes or defend myself. I just wanted to clarify on a misconception I'm seeing a lot in the comments and even more in personal messages. Am I the asshole for refusing to take my name off of the deed to my mother-in-law's home? Me and my partner have been together for 8 years, married for 2 of them. 5 years ago, we bought a home together of a small 2-bedroom unit just to see if we could coexist without killing one another, with the intention of only staying a few years, but we got married and then upgraded to something larger. 3 years on, we had enough of a deposit to do just that when my partner's mother came to us asking for help. She wanted to buy a place that didn't have anything in the way of savings. She was tired of renting as it was becoming more and more expensive. We talked about the issue knowing that if we agreed to help, it meant delaying our own upgrade by a further 3 years at minimum. With some hesitation on our part, we nevertheless did the right thing and helped out his mother by giving her $90,000. And she bought a place also with the aid of her other son. Recently, my partner has been talking to me about getting my name taken off the documentation to the house, so it is only her name and 2 sons on all the paperwork. I know his mother has been in his ear about it because he only ever brings it up after a solo visit to her. For a while, I avoided the conversation, but recently my husband has had an actual conversation with a lawyer to draw up paperwork to have my name legally removed. When I found out, I told my husband we needed to have a serious talk, and I told him honestly that I would not remove my name from the documentation because to date his mother has not paid either of us back a single cent of the money we lent her. This angered my husband, who said I had agreed to take my name off the documentation. That's why he spoke to a lawyer in the first place. When I insisted, I never agreed, and that I was just protecting us both by insisting our names stay on all the documentation, he called me paranoid that his mother would never cheat us. Now I feel guilty. Am I the asshole for refusing to remove my name from the documentation, seeing as I did help pay for the place she bought, and without our help, she would be stuck renting? Am I the asshole for telling my mom I won't take care of her once she's too ill to take care of herself? I, 19 female, am the youngest of 5. I have 4 older brothers, 21, 22, 25, and 28. Just to give some background, my mom has always loved being a boy mom. She dotes on them and made it very, very clear she never wanted to and didn't like having a daughter. She never liked me, and I accepted that long ago, and her behavior towards me worsened when my dad left her. When I turned 16, her gift to me was a list of jobs I can apply to quote unquote pay for my expenses, even though my dad was giving her child support. Then at 17, she kicked me out because I wasn't willing to pay more than $400 for rent while my brothers didn't even work. So she asked to meet me for lunch last weekend, and she told me that she is sick. She has been in and out of the hospital the last few months before she found out she's sick, and is looking at 12 to 18 months before she'll be too weak and ill to care for herself. She asked when that time came if I'd be willing to be her caretaker, as she didn't want men, aka my brothers, to take care of her in that state and didn't want a stranger to either. Here is where I'm questioning if I'm the asshole. I told her no, I won't care for her, and she should start looking for someone she knows who'd be willing to, because I'm not. This past week, I've been receiving nasty messages from everyone from my mom's Facebook because she posted about me, quote unquote, not caring about her. They've called me unsympathetic, selfish, mean-spirited, uncaring, etc. My brothers have also been mad at me now. Now I feel like I am an asshole and I want to know. Edit, I want to clarify, I do not live with my mom, and I have not lived with her for over 2 years now. When she put me out, I never went back. My dad is involved in my life, but I keep him at a distance because I'm still going through stuff, which I am going to therapy for, and partly blame him for never sticking up for me because he knew how she treated me. But he is here for me, and I have friends and family on my dad's side who are supporting me. And I've been going through the comments and reading DMs, bawling my eyes out. You all are so nice, and I want to thank you all for your kind words. It really means so much. I'm giving you all virtual hugs because you guys really made my night. Thank you.